So this dialogue, which is about Pope Francis's Laudato Si, and I'm going to use the acronym LSM, it's about his encyclica. And we have with us today 4 young leaders of the Laudato Si movement, and it's my pleasure to introduce all 4 of them. So I'll start with Piotr Abramczyk. Thank you. Piotr is an LSM director from Poland. Cheryl Dugan is an LSM program manager from Manila in the Philippines. Regina Lujan is LSM community manager and content creator from Honduras. And Luke Henkel is the LSM program coordinator from Chicago, USA. So Luke, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Allison, and thank you, Susie, for bringing this together. We're just so excited to be able to come together and share. This is such an incredible, unique opportunity, exciting because it's the first time we've ever really come together as a secretariat from various places around the world to share in such a way today. So really excited to hear what Cheryl and Regina and Piotr have to say as they share about the challenges, the opportunities, the wonderful work that we're doing around the world to bring Laudato Si to life. Just really quickly, we are present on all continents as Laudato Si Movement in all regions of the world, from Kenya and Botswana and Africa to the Philippines and Fiji, which is where Cheryl is. So it's like, what was it? We figured 3 a.m. over there right now. So we're going to actually let her share as much as she can first, and that way she can get back to sleep. We are in many states in the US, Texas and Minnesota, New Hampshire, with chapters in places like Honduras, as we'll hear from Regina, and many more places besides. So I'd love to explore how we as staff in this movement are working to bring Laudato Si to life in the Catholic Church to address this very challenging question that Allison just mentioned. How do we, in fact, mobilize 1.3 billion Catholics around the world? It's a really, really big goal. And, you know, there's good days, there's bad days, but we're going to get into all that in a minute. Just a very quick way to center ourselves as we come together in this movement. Laudato Si movement is grounded in prayer, always. We are grounded in this eco-conversion spirit, eco-spirituality. So just a minute to come together in this space, as we are all in many different locations, as we've all had very many different things going on already today. So just take a moment to center yourselves, maybe close your eyes. Wherever you are, whatever's happened today, whatever anxieties you bring, maybe about the state of the planet, about the work that you do, and just be with them for a second. We in Laudato Si movement are grounded in this truth that all things are interconnected, that all things matter, and that all of us are in this together. So take a couple of breaths to feel that. It may be hard virtually to feel connected, but just take a few breaths to feel that we are all from many places, but we are all doing this one work. And maybe with another breath or two, feel free also to offer up a brief recognition of gratitude. Thanks that we can be together in this. Maybe one more breath in the spirit of gratitude. We thank you for Regina and Piotr and Cheryl coming together to share, and we ask that this wisdom and their experiences renew our hope, renew our spirits, and may serve to renew the face of the earth. Thank you. So, I hope that it was a little grounding for you. And without further ado, I would like to just briefly explain the history of Laudato Si movement and just some important things in case there's any confusion about what Laudato Si movement is. And as we always say in our work, there's the movement with the big M, and then there's the movement with the small m. So just a little bit about that. It'll help to clarify how Laudato Si movement was founded, and then we'll definitely get to our panelists. And also forgive me, I got really sick. I've been feverish the last couple of days, so I hope I don't break down coughing or anything throughout this presentation. Just maybe bear with me on that one. But so Laudato Si movement is, it was founded shortly after Laudato Si came out in 2015. What happened was the Pope had gone to the Philippines. So the story actually goes back to where Cheryl is from. There was a typhoon that ravaged the Philippines in that time. And in the moment, it was the worst typhoon on record. And the Pope was there with people, and our executive director, Tomas, who's just recently left us, he ended up meeting with the Pope there, and very long story short, a couple phone calls from our one of our Cheryl, maybe you'll help me with this one, because I get the story confused with how Christina got involved. Maybe you want to just briefly explain that and how it came about.
So really what happened was Tomas had to do a lot of phone calls to several people all over the globe. And there were just a handful who responded to him, and they became the founding members of the movement. And during Pope Francis's visit to the Philippines, prior to that, I'll have to go back. Prior to that, they came together and wrote the foundational statement. For the name before was Global Catholic Climate Movement. And they knew that the Pope is coming to the Philippines, and so they asked for the help of Cardinal Tagle to deliver this foundational statement during the visit. So back to you, Luke.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes. And there's a much longer story here, but all that to say that Laudato Si movement was founded as a movement to move the church. And that's within this larger context of the movement of ecological work, of trying to stop climate change and do what we can to care for our common home. There's sometimes some confusion if you're not familiar with Laudato Si as an actual movement, but that is an organization. And that's within the much bigger, but also the small letter M movement of ecological work. So there's many different organizations actually within the Catholic Church. In the United States, we have the Catholic Climate Covenant. We have the Nation Solidarity Network doing amazing things. We're very close partners with them in their work on, advocacy and lots of other things. In Canada as well, we have chapters. So there's lots of ecological movements, and Laudato Si movement is like the organization moving in this. As I said before, we're based in prayer and we're based in eco-spirituality. So that's one of our three pillars. We have eco-spirituality, we have advocacy, and we have our campaigns. So I would like to move it without further ado to our panelists. I'm happy to answer more questions in the chat about our history and whatnot, but I want to give them time to speak. So I would really like to start with you all, a little bit of your stories, a little bit of your background, and what brought you here to LSM and why. So let's do that. Why don't we start with, I'll just go down my list, the Cheryl, and then Regina and Piotr. So Cheryl, what brought you to LSM? What's your kind of brief history, maybe your personal moment of awakening about the climate crisis and how you came to LSM?
Thank you, Luke. So it wasn't really a sudden realization, but rather a gradual journey that began when I was working with non-government organizations focused on children's rights, children's protection across Asia. And the work involved assisting children during disasters. And that is when I saw firsthand how disasters often strip children of their basic rights, the right to education, the right to a safe environment, as they were forced to move to evacuation centers, and sometimes even the right to life. And while I was working with these organizations in November 2013, the typhoon that you mentioned, Luke, that was a time when the cyclone hit our country. And Typhoon Haiyan left thousands dead. And it took really years for people to rebuild their lives. It took a long while. And this has made me realize that climate change and environmental issues have really become now the battleground for safeguarding children. But why Laudato Si Movement? You would have known that, Luke, because you came to the Philippines, that we have so many environmental organizations in the Philippines. But why Laudato Si Movement? So as I mentioned, in January 2015, just a year after the typhoon happened, Pope Francis visited the Philippines. So he held a mass in the area devastated by the typhoon. And that moment actually remains as one of the most moving moments for me until now. I still remember Pope Francis in yellow raincoat saying an outdoor mass while it was raining, and the attendees were the survivors of the typhoon. Many of them have lost their families, many of them still living in temporary shelters. And many of them are really crying during the mass, as if expressing their hardships on Pope Francis. And I was watching them from Manila on TV, and I was in tears. And in that visit, Pope Francis really left a very deep impression on me. And so 4 years after, when I felt ready to move on from my other organization, I discovered, just in time, Laudato Si Movement. And I did feel a strong calling to join and respond to Pope Francis's plea to unite in caring for and protecting our common home. And now, almost 5 years later, I'm still here with the movement. What about you, Regina? What's your story?
Okay, from my side, it's quite different because I studied tourism, and it's like in tourism, they always share with you like the best part of the world, the places the tourist wants to visit, right? But I was like the weird one that was always asking what's the bad side, like this massive tourism, what it's doing with the islands and things like that. So this is start to come in my head, like what's going on with all these places and all these tourists destroying places, right? So then I made the movement in Panama, in the World Youth Day. I was with another community, and they start to do like this big hug. I think, Luke, you were there too. And they do like the biggest hug ever. And I was like, they're crazy. I like that. So I started like looking at everywhere, like in Instagram, what's going on with this movement. And I think that LSM was the perfect place for me because it's action and also reflection. But in that time, I need that action, right, to do things. And here in Honduras, it's a bit complicated. All the things about the defenders is really dangerous to defend our planet. So being part of the Catholic Church and helping this was perfect for me, right? So I started like talking with another animators. I became an animator. And then I was part of the Honduras chapter, of the founders of the Honduras chapter, and I helped with the communication. And then I became like a volunteer for the comms team in LSM. And from now I have like almost 2 years working with communications and trying to share to everyone who has social media, what we do, what's the message. So Piotr, your time. How do you met LSM?
Thank you. My story also involves World Youth Days, but it begins a little bit earlier. If I would have to answer shortly why LSM, I would say because of two things. Because I'm a Catholic and because I'm a meteorologist. So it all started with my passion for weather, which led me to graduating meteorology and then becoming a professional meteorologist. And as you can imagine, I got more and more concerned with what's going on with the weather around the globe and with the climate. I looked for ways of engagement in Poland, but as I did that, I was faced with a kind of dichotomy. The environmental organizations I encounter while having programs focused on environment, at the same time often promoted ideas that were incompatible with my Christian faith. On the other hand, the Catholic charity organizations in Poland were completely silent about the care of environment. So I couldn't find a place where I could actually realize this need of care for climate and environment that would suit me and my beliefs. And then the Laudato Si encyclical was released, and that has been a really big deal for me. I could say even a kind of breakthrough in my life, because it confirmed my intuitions that Christian faith and the care for environment and the care for other people are all very strongly connected, and they should be a part of an honest Christian life. And this is the official Catholic Church teaching, actually. So when I had it on paper, I was very enthusiastic, and I wanted to go from parish to parish and preach preach the Laudato Si encyclical. And I actually started doing this and involving individually in this kind of actions, but then came the 2016 and the World Youth Days in Poland, in Krakow, where I met the Laudato Si movement in its beginnings. And since that time, our paths started to cross more and more often. And finally, in 2018, I became a part of the staff. And today I'm leading the movement's branch in Poland and coordinating our actions here.
Wow, tremendous background, Piotr. And just to get this straight, so you were actually like going parish to parish or door to door knocking on people's doors to tell them about Laudato Si at the time?
Yes, this was my idea, and I started with my befriended Catholic community and wanted to go further, but I encountered many obstacles, but maybe we will have a chance to speak about this soon.
Yes. Wow, that's awesome. That's true dedication. What you bring up, I mean, these are just such powerful stories, and there's a lot to unpack here. One of the things that you were mentioning, Piotr, is how difficult it is for people in the church in Poland necessarily to see that ecology and care for creation are connected to their faith. And I remember yesterday we were discussing prior to this webinar, and what you were saying was that people might want to do some things like recycle, or if they do see that it's ecology work, they'll segregate their food or these kinds of things. But that the care for creation is so much more than just recycling. And so what I'd like to do now is kind of dive into that. What are some challenges you see in how Laudato Si is received, or maybe not, in your contexts? So maybe we'll go the other way this time.
This is a big topic, I would say. Maybe to give a big picture, I can say that the Polish society is deeply polarized and divided. Generally speaking, very generally speaking, the division is between, I would say, conservative part and the more liberal part. And the same situation is in the Polish church, although in this case is more nuanced. But the church is also divided. So when we were thinking on how to get this message through, the Laudato Si message through, our strategy was to pull out the ecological and climate issues from this conflict, because this is something that should join us, actually, not divide us. This is our common cause. We say that environment is our common good and earth is our common home. So why, yeah, we shouldn't divide about it, but it should bring us together, actually, to work for the care of the world. So this is our strategy, but and our focus is on the Catholic Church. And with the encyclical, we've been given tools as you know, as an official church teaching, and the text that we have. However, in practice, there are many challenges to implement it. One thing is, I would say, political. That environmentalism is linked to political left or very liberal movements. And in Poland, Catholic Church is on the conservative part. So when we come with the environmental message, we are treated with mistrust, or sometimes even opposition or kind of aggression. And it's really difficult to break this. We can refer to the foundations of our faith, the official church teaching, but anyway, there is still this kind of thinking that we do not belong to this group. So we are working to pull out this ecological issue out of this this conflict zone. One other challenge, I would say, is that people are still not really aware of the threat that climate change brings. I'm even not talking about denialism, which is a problem, but this is not that big not that big part of the people, although they are very loud. But even the people who are kind of neutral or kind of supportive to our cause, they don't really realize why we are so, you know, active about it. And even the bishops who support Laudato Si in general, they do not see the urgency of this kind of work. So doing this, you know, awareness raising is another aspect of what's necessary to actually make people realize what we're dealing with and why this is so crucial. Divisions inside the church, as was previously mentioned, are also a big part of problem and challenges we are facing. There is a pro Pope Francis church and against Pope Francis church and some other things. Also here, I would say specific in our part of the world is the context of the war in Ukraine. This is impacting many spheres of life, and especially when the war broke, there was ecology fall out of the agenda from the news, etc. So it was like the main topic. And also the war is causing energy crisis, made some countries kind of revert from the clean energy sources to coal and coal-based energy sources. So this kind of context is not easy, although I see it also as a chance. And last thing, what you mentioned, Luke, is that ecology became kind of trendy, so to say. Many people tell about ecology, but it's very shallow. It's only limited to putting the trash to the right bin, and people say, okay, I'm now ecological. So it's good that the topic is becoming more popular, but it's not good that it stays on this shallow level and without even knowing why we're doing it and why we need to do more. So through our programs in Poland, we try to face those issues and find the solutions to bring Laudato Si to life. But I realize other parts of the world might have different issues. So maybe Regina, could you tell what it's like in Honduras?
Yes, it's totally different because I was talking this with Luke. Here, the issue is that we have like different situations in in the entire country, but in the church, people need more education. We're the most vulnerable country, so they don't even know that. So we are facing corruption, poverty, education. So when you visit the church and try to talk to the priest and talk about the care of the common home, it's a bit difficult. You have to do it in a different way. And we have been experienced being part of them and trying to explain that for example, we have a big hurricane or a lot of migration from South America to the US passing through Honduras. So we try to be there with the church and help them with small things, being those guardians. So every animator is doing a small bit, sharing a small bit of information to their church, but not trying to attack them with all the things, all the small lifestyle changes that they can do. We are trying to do a bridge between all these situations that's going on in the country, and being present. We have trying to be present in the Catholic schools, for example, with small kids, trying to make them have a different perspective, that you can do this in your church, that is not a homework just for school, right? And in the political side, it's a bit complicated because here it's so dangerous to be part of the defenders. So if you're trying to go and get outside of the court with your position, being church, is a bit complicated. I never tried. I confess that I have never tried because it's dangerous. And some of the priests in specific zones, they have been killed for that. So it's really hard for us. And for example, our campaigns in LSMs they're different in every region, right? We can go to my church and talk about divest. It's crazy. They don't even invest in something, right? So you start with small things and being present. I think this is the perfect start, being present with them, showing that you're not that crazy one trying to save the planet and that you don't care about the rest. Because when you start when you mention Laudato Si, sometimes it's complicated because they say okay, we don't care about the planet, we're having this issue. So you have to, I don't know if it's like that in Philippines. Cheryl.
Well, because Laudato Si Movement Asia Pacific operates in 2 continents, in Asia and Oceania, there are really varied challenges for each country. But generally, like Piotr, we're also facing the challenge of lack of awareness both about the climate crisis and the messages of Laudato Si, even within the Catholic Church. And so climate change is not really taught in most schools in most of the countries here. And spreading awareness about Laudato Si as well can be difficult. So while we in LSM has produced the Laudato Si documentary film, The Letter, it has been helpful in raising awareness to some extent, but there's also the challenge of language barriers, since the film is only available in a few languages. And Asia, for example, has several different languages. And translating, so it's really just great that many of our network here has came forward and offered to do a free translation of the subtitle of the film so that we could bring it to the communities in these countries. But then there's still a lot of countries who will not be able to watch the Laudato Si documentary. Another challenge that's being faced in many countries, is the political landscape. The political landscape in many countries presents difficulties because it limits efforts or responses to Laudato Si. It can be very challenging, as Regina's mentioned, to advocate for changes in some contexts where when you oppose government projects such as coal-powered plants, that can endanger your life. And it's happening in many of the countries here. Additionally, countries in the region are grappling with so many urgent challenges. There's poverty, human rights violations, extremism, and therefore environmental concerns take a backseat sometimes, as our church leaders had to prioritize other pressing issues. So these are just three of the more common challenges being faced in the region.
Gosh, thank you, Cheryl. This is so rich, and there's just so much to dive in. If only we had 5 hours for this webinar. But I do want to point out that, like you're just saying, the environmental and political dangers in some of the countries that we work in. For example, we don't have anybody from Brazil on this panel, but we have a very strong team in Brazil. And Brazil is one of the most dangerous countries to be an environmental activist, as many on this call probably know if you're listening. And there's an interesting dynamic because, and maybe Cheryl, you could speak to this too. You have the reality that Brazil is deforesting the Amazon, and there's incredibly powerful lobbyists for oil through the Amazon and drilling and all of this. But Brazil is a very heavily Catholic country. So you have a lot of opportunity there, in the sense that our team in Brazil is working with the Catholic bishops there, and they're able to make a lot of headway because there's a very powerful cultural influence. And I know it's somewhat similar, Cheryl, there in the Philippines. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, your opportunities and challenges there.
Yes, being a predominantly Catholic country in Asia, our church leaders have some influence in the government, and they are actually able to dialogue if they wanted some policies change or something. But then also there's the truth that the economic plans of some countries are really dependent on fossil fuels. So that is the way, well, they say that's the way to progress, and they need it to progress. And so when they open some, like for example, coal-fired power plants, governments usually become very protective of that program. And so anyone who opposes that could face some consequences. And that's what happened also, as Regina said, some of our church leaders who spoke against it or who are raising their voices have been actually tagged as communists. And when you are tagged as communist, that is really very dangerous, and that could cost you your life. But yeah, that is the reality we are living in some of the countries here, including the Philippines.
And I know you have many more difficult countries besides your work in Myanmar, Cheryl, and other parts of Oceania, where it is very, very challenging and very little, often little resources to support your work. But if I could transition into some positive notes, I'd like to offer this next few moments for successes in our work. And I'll turn again first to you, Cheryl, because I know you've been doing amazing work with the FFNPT, the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, and had a lot of really important steps made there, as well as at COP28. So maybe you could speak to that.
That is actually why I am in Fiji right now, because we are doing some strategy planning together with the Pacific civil society organizations. And our Archbishop here actually participated in the closing ceremony today. So I will start with the main issue that we are tackling in the region. The main issue that we are really facing here is the growing impact of global warming, like rising sea levels and more frequent extreme weather events. And it's especially hitting our coastal areas, which are many, and islands. And to address this and to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees, as agreed in the Paris Agreement, we need to deal with the main driver of climate change, which is the emission from burning fossil fuels. And these fuels like coal and oil pump out a huge 89% of carbon dioxide emissions worldwide. And so in the region, we are really urging global leaders to get on board with a plan to have a fossil fuel treaty. And we, LSM Asia Pacific is backing a proposal from small Pacific island states. It was started by Vanuatu and Tuvalu, very small island states, and they are calling for governments worldwide to agree to develop a treaty on fossil fuel non-proliferation and to work together to lay out a plan to stop expansion of fossil fuel projects and to switch to renewable energy in a way that doesn't leave anyone behind. And we are very thankful for the 6 important Catholic leaders in Asia and Oceania and the numerous Catholic organizations who supported this call for action. They lent their voices to call for the development of this treaty. And we're also grateful to our local leaders, especially in the Philippines and South Korea, where coal-fired power plants are popping up. And our local groups and religious leaders are teaming up with civil society to fight against these projects and to stop banks from funding them. And this advocacy really lines up well with Pope Francis' recent message in Laudato Si Movement, where he is urging everyone for a quick switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
Great, thank you, Cheryl. I think we might have lost Regina. Do you mind just really quick, Cheryl, explaining Laudato Si for those that might not be familiar with on the call?
It is an exhortation from the Pope. It was released in October, just in time for the COP28. It is reminding us again of the urgency of the situation, but what I'm really grateful for that document is that it has zeroed in on the main driver of climate change, which is fossil fuel. So that's why it gives me confidence to really take on this advocacy as our flagship advocacy campaign in the region.
That's amazing, yes. How about you, Piotr?
Yeah, we've got some success stories as well. As I mentioned, we try to extract ecological topics from this main line of division in Poland. And we've been trying to do that by cleverly prepared campaigns, strategies, or events. And one such success is a campaign we organized together with one civil society or organization that was called, it was centered around air pollution problem in Poland, because Poland has, unfortunately, one of the worst air in the European Union. And the campaign was called God Gives Life, Smog Takes It Away. So it was deeply rooted in, Catholic spirituality and Catholic pro-life support. But it was directing this pro-life movement towards environmental issues. We wanted to show them that being pro-environment, pro-climate is also pro-life. So this campaign gained very wide recognition, and it was broadcast in two opposing TV stations, by two opposing TV stations, a very liberal one and a very conservative one, both acknowledging its beneficial aspects for the society. So this was one of our big successes. Also, we have organized already 6 conferences called Creatio Continua that aim to build the language that is pulling ecology from this political argument. And we managed to divide politicians, thinkers, academics from different options to really get them to sit and talk about these crucial issues. So this is, I would say, one part, and another is our work within the church. And here, I think our biggest success is the growing movement and growing network of individual people, volunteers, and animators. We already have over 500 people in our network, half of which are certified Laudato Si animators. And just to explain, Laudato Si animator is a person who completes a special training we offer as Laudato Si Movement on ecological issues and the church teaching. Through the fact that our network is growing and that we are getting more and more recognizable, we meet with the bishops and explain them our role, our mission. We were invited to the bishops' conference's plenary session to give a presentation on our movement and on the importance of ecological actions and why it's important that Catholics should also engage. And the effect of this was that there was established a special Laudato Si bishop in the Polish bishops' conferences. So this is a reference person for ecological matters. And this is I would say, a big milestone, because up until that moment, it was very difficult to talk with the bishops and with the bishops' conferences about ecology, about climate change. And now we have this person that is a link to the whole bishop conferences in Poland. And yeah, we also we get more and more known by the church hierarchy, by the bishops, and they see the need of doing this ecological work in the church. And even recently, one bishop wrote a book, and in this book, our movement is several times set as an example of how this this should get done. So yeah, we have this kind of successes. There are, I guess, more stories, but I would like also I would also like to give Regina some time to say about her work in Honduras. So the floor is yours, Regina.
Okay, so I was thinking about this organization, this member organization of LSM here in Honduras. And we found them in social media. They were doing this activity, cleaning the river. So we were like, okay, it's the weekend, we can join them, talk about Laudato Si. And it was like a perfect connection because they were saving the mountains behind the Basilica of Our Lady of Suyapa. And they were looking for a connection with a Catholic church, because I think that if Our Lady of Suyapa was found in these mountains, why does the church doesn't want to like care about them, right? So we were like in the perfect moment, perfect timing, and we started like this connection, helping them with the animators to plant trees, to be part of their activities. But we became really good friends. Some of them were like the best Catholics ever, but they were like fighting a bit with the church because of these, but because they don't have like a space of the care of the common home. So with us, they start to go into all the Catholic activities too. And we start doing a lot of work with them because they want to protect the whole mountain and make them a protected area. And this has been like a situation for a lot of years because they were like they gave them these mountains to the people who live there first, but then like the political people start like selling these mountains, and this is like the biggest issue, like when this start to be dangerous because they want to like move everyone from there and take the land. So like we start like knocking doors to the church and explaining them the importance of the mountain. If you take a picture of the basilica, here is the mountain. There was like the home of the lady, right? So it was a crazy adventure with all of the LSAs, another organizations, non-Catholics that start to help them too. And now they are like waiting for the big moment to become in a protected area. Unfortunately, during this path, the main person who started with this organization was murdered because of this. And when we were in his mass, it was so touching for me because he was a big Catholic. He spent all his life like helping in the church in silence, and he was doing everything because of the Lady of Suyapa. So it was really touching. And yesterday we received the news that they're waiting for the moment the government gave the papers that they are a protected area, and they start like sending messages that LSM is part of this because we start with this bridge with the organization and the church. So for me, it's like my heart is full right now with this. Like your message is there, Laudato Si is there for them, and they love to tell everyone about the Laudato Si and the Pope Francis messages. They're always replying with like, read the encyclical, right? So it's one of our incredible stories here.
That is indeed, oh, so touching. Wow, thanks for sharing. I realize we're almost at the end of the hour, and so I would invite people at this time to put questions in the chat if you have any and you want to ask. You can direct them to a specific panelist. As they come in, I would like to go through quickly just because we don't have that much time, but each of you ask the big question that is maybe burning for all of us. Do we think, since the theme of this webinar was, can we mobilize? How do we mobilize 1.3 billion Catholics? How do you feel about that? You know, what is hopeful for you in this? Are you feeling that we're going in the right direction? And then what is one thing that gives you hope about mobilizing our Catholic world? lightning fast. You don't have to go into too much detail, but just something that gives you hope.
So I'd start. So I'd say we've made significant progress in mobilizing Catholics, but we still have a long way to go to reach all 1.3 billion Catholics. And but while we've seen positive momentum, increased engagement, there's still a vast untapped potential within the global Catholic community. And we must just really remain committed to our efforts to ensure that we mobilize the Catholics at the pace necessary to address the climate crisis. What gives me hope, of course, is Pope Francis, because of his unwavering commitment and leadership in addressing the crisis. And he constantly reminds us that even in the face of challenges, there is still a reason to believe that things can still change. What do you think, Piotr? Are we on track?
Yes, I could say exactly the same, Cheryl. I see a lot of challenges. I see the difficulties. I also am aware that we, as a global society, we are lagging when we compare to what climate change is doing, and we're not at the right place at the moment. But yeah, what gives me hope is looking at the example of Pope Francis and how much his encyclical, his exhortation, his many messages, how much have they moved the church forward. This is really a big progress, because even looking, 8-9 years back, we can see how the church changed. So I think we're on the right track, but we have to move faster. But for me, my biggest source of hope is the God that I believe in, and because of him, I am here in this place doing what I'm doing, and I think I would do the same even if the situation was hopeless, because I believe that through this work I am giving a testimony as a Christian, and amidst this difficult news from all around the world, this is something also rewarding for me, that in the crisis we can shine as Christian, as good people, and yeah, this gives me hope and strength. What about you, Regina?
Oh, I love that reply. So Cheryl, my favorite quote from Laudato Si is that one. We know that things can change, and for me, that gives me a lot of hope, because when you're like doing a lot of work with all this situation, and you take that time to make sure that we can do things that can make a difference, and also being like, this is an invite to be able to read Laudato Si, and it's not just for Catholic people, it's for all good people here, and it helped us. From my side, it helped us to like a guide what Pope Francis has been like working with all the ecological integrity, and knowing that it's a bit, we talk about this at the beginning, that like all these ecological things are coming like in trend, but we need to try to do it like in a good way. So for all that young people who are looking for a space of action and reflection, you can join the LSM and be part of the change.
I love that so much. That is one of my favorite quotes too. We know things can change. And there's another part just after that, Regina, in Laudato Si, that says we are all called to contribute our talents and treasures as we can. So just a closing message about how important it is for all of us to do our part. It's not just the Catholics doing their thing, or one person doing it perfectly. It's all of us doing it, maybe quite imperfectly, but like we are supposed to be coming together, because that's what Catholic means. It means universal. So that's this idea of all of us being involved together. I know we're coming up on the end of the hour, and I hadn't seen any questions in the chat. One just came in. It is heartening to see the youth connecting with faith. Do you feel that the environment and attention to its impact both locally and globally can draw or reconnect youth to an active faith? Okay, we've got 3 minutes. Can we do this in like half of that time? What about the youth and reconnecting to an active faith? I don't know if anyone wants to take that on.
Maybe I'll start the conversation. I think my short answer is yes. We could see, for example, the example of Fridays for Future, how the young people get really passionate about saving our common home. And also I see it as a chance for the church, at least the church in Poland, to provide the answers for real problems that are that the youth is facing, for example. So the church has these answers in her treasury, but they need to take it and present it to the youth, and that may be something that also attracts youth to the church, with which we have problems at the moment, at least in Poland. What about in your places, Cheryl and Regina?
Yes, actually, we have now a chapter made up of hundreds of animators, around 400 of them, and they are all youth. And it actually gets them closer to the church, because as they work on environment, as they learn Laudato Si, they also try to seek some answers, and they approach their parish priests for support and for help. And I think it's a good connector, and it's also a good way for them to participate in the activities or of their local churches. So yeah, I'd say it does connect with the faith. Oh, I have also a story in Vietnam, because I visited Vietnam some time ago. They started the during season of creation. We celebrate season of creation every September to October 4. And during season of creation, they started the practice of doing of saying mass with creation. We say it, or in outside. So it's an outside mass under the trees, And one that actually the observation was that more young people are now joining every time they do this. And also one priest went ahead with an outdoor confession. And the feedback was that more youth were actually coming back to the church because of this. So the youth feel very strongly about the climate issue, and they also feel connected with the environment. And so yeah, I think it does help to connect the young people with their faith and with the church leaders as well.
I think I'm part of that answer, and for me, it's death. As I mentioned before, LSM is a place like to have this action and this disconnection from the daily things that we do in church, to connect with the earth, as mentioned, Cheryl, with mass in the park, or having these activities of cleaning beaches and praying at the same time. So for me, definitely, and also it helps Pope Francis. His message are like perfect for youth people, and he connects a lot with the youth. So yes, we can do it, and we are like motivated with this.
If I can add one more thought to this.
We gotta wrap up. We're already at the hour. I'm so sorry, but
Okay.
yeah, what I'm gonna do is, I know we could just keep going all day, Piotr. I will leave my email, and then before we close out, maybe all three of you could as well, if you'd like to connect with any of us. I'm just going to leave this here, and if you're looking for questions to be answered or anything else, and I guess Allison will close us out.
Wow, that was really incredible, wonderful. And I want to thank each one of you for being able to be so personal and so, touching with what you bring to this discussion, because so many times with UN type things, we hear everything from up here, but today I hear a lot more from the heart. So thank you so much. This has been absolutely fascinating.